Let's wait till we walk slowly.
Good morning. Welcome to First Jefferson Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Julia Sexton.
And I'm Annie Foerster. Welcome to our service on joy. And I think Julia has some announcements to begin with.
I do. 2 announcements for Eastside Community Assistance. Today is the last day to buy the raffle tickets for the beautiful quilt that will be auctioned off on Tuesday evening. There are still 2 seats available at the First Jefferson table for Tuesday night's Christmas by Candlelight. They are free, but reservations are required. Contact Colleen today if you'd like to attend. Otherwise, the seats will be given to people from other congregations.
Okay. Julia, there are pipe cleaners in the orders of service. Do we have somebody who smokes a pipe? Do you know why they're in there?
I do know why they're there. I put them there.
Oh.
We're going to make Christmas ornaments.
Okay, that's right. It's the hanging of the greens today. You all go to potluck after the service and then come back to the sanctuary and help decorate the tree. But how do we turn these into ornaments?
I'll show you.
All right.
This is a design that my granddaughter Jillian taught me. So we're going to make dragonflies in this demonstration. So choose which color you would like to be the body of your dragonfly. You're going to bend it in half and pinch it down, and then bend it in half again.
All right.
And this time we're going to twist it a little bit, but you want to leave a gap up close to that top loop because...
Like this?
Not quite that big.
Okay.
Twist it up a little tighter. Yeah, more like this.
All right.
So I know it's hard to see, they're small. So you're going to take your second pipe cleaner and thread it through until you come to halfway. And, you know,
Okay.
we're approximating here. So
Oh, okay. In the middle.
thread it through and twist it a little tighter if you
So
need
there's
to.
a head up at the top
To
there.
hold it still.
Yeah. All right.
And then wrap it around so that it's also holding the body, so it's a little bit tighter, less wobbly as you work with it.
Okay.
So then we're going to make the top wing, the top larger wing first. So I'd say 1.5 inches, 2 inches. Make your bend. And then again, bring the end around to the bottom. And then make your lower wing out of that one. And we're working with a little bit short for the design, so we're just going to tuck that end in as best we can. And then we do the same thing on the other side. Bend, around, bend, and and tuck, and voila,
Okay.
a dragonfly. So what do dragonflies have to do with Christmas, you want to know? For their ornaments. We've chosen a nature theme. So we're going to have all manner of flying insects or animals, critters on the board. And so you'll bring these back after potluck and we'll hang them on the tree. Rumor has it that we might also have a special visitor during that time.
Oh, that kind of special visitor? All right. That's wonderful. So I got a dragonfly who's a little lopsided, but you know, he can fly.
Well, and the nice thing about pipe cleaners is that they're flexible in that you can, if you don't like it, you can unbend it and start over or start halfway or make something entirely different. If the dragonfly isn't your cup of tea, play with it. Find something else.
Okay, that's wonderful. So let's get our service started, and you can bend and twist. There's probably more pipe cleaners out there while you listen to the lovely seasonal prelude. All right. That was perfect for a service about joy. Our call to worship this morning was written by, I don't know because we've already gone past that, so it's in your order of service. Come in, all who long to know how to love this world, how to keep eyes open, hands unclenched, arms wide, breathing deeply in and out.
This is a time to practice, because there is still so much good and beauty and joy.
But it can be hard to keep telling this tale with all the news and the wind and the rain and the trembling earth. Who wants to love this life anyway?
Come in, all who teeter on this edge of cynicism, brokenhearted and trying still to remember the laughter and kindness and chance to be alive.
In these days, when so much is at stake, in this place, we remind each other why we persist, giving each other courage to take this path that is not always easy, to keep practicing this love that cannot, will not let us go, and still calls us on. Come, let us worship together. Let us sing our opening hymn, number 108, My Life Flows On in Endless Song. Please remain standing while we light the chalice and say our affirmation. Deep calls unto deep. Joy calls unto joy. Light calls unto light. Let the kindling of this flame rekindle in us the inner light of love, of peace, of hope. And as one flame lights another, nor grows the less, we pledge ourselves to be bearers of the light wherever we are. Julia, would you lead us in our affirmation, please?
Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another.
Please be seated. I have one question for you today before we start. Are you primarily a creator of joy, a receiver of joy, a noticer of joy, or perhaps a spreader of joy. And maybe you're a combination of two or more of those things. We have a story for all ages. Are the children going to come in today? Last time they came just at the right time, but I don't see them, so I'm just going to start. This is a story out of the Japanese Shinto tradition. And I wanted to ask before I start, do you ever feel sad on cloudy days? Do you miss the sun when it rains? In almost every culture, the sun has been worshipped at one time or another as a god or a goddess, one who brings joy into this life. And this is a story, as I said, from the Japanese Shinto tradition about that very thing. Amaterasu was the first daughter of the two creationist deities, the god Izanagi, and the goddess Izanami. They had formed every piece of land on the earth, from the mountains rising into the sky to the waters in the ocean, stirring around the land. And once the earth had been formed, Izanagi and Izanami wished to create life that would be able to frolic upon the creation. First, they gave birth to Amaterasu, whose radiance and beauty did nothing but bring utter joy to her parents' life. And they wanted to share that joy with the world. So she was placed up in the sky for everyone to see and to protect the day in the form of the sun. Amaterasu had two siblings who were born soon after, the god of the moon, Tsukiyomi, a peaceful and composed child who was a fraction as bright as his sister and became the god of the seas. Susanoo, a boy with an awful temperament who was prone to violence. Susanoo's rage and love of wreaking havoc upon the ocean eventually led him to be demoted to god of the underworld, but that is a story for another day. One day, while weaving on her loom, Amaterasu was attacked by her brother Susanoo. He was infuriated by how beautiful and beloved she was, and Susanoo killed the girl's favorite mare and tossed it into her weaving room, ruining all the looms and the projects that she had created. It is said that Susanoo's rage was so great that Amaterasu, the gentle goddess, fled her palace in fear, and she eventually sought refuge in a cave within the mountains, refusing to shine her light upon the world anymore. It was dark. There was no more joy. And slowly the earth began to wither, and it threatened to die, causing demons to crawl from the underworld and wreak their own chaos upon the people and the plants and the animals upon its surface. Well, knowing that the world was in danger, the gods and the goddesses assembled outside the cave and attempted to lure Amaterasu out to shine her light on the earth once more. And after begging and pleading to no avail, Uzume, the goddess of laughter, created a plan. She placed a huge mirror facing the cave against a nearby rock, and she hung jewels from the trees, and then she began to dance, urging the other gods and goddesses to do the same. Their celebration sounded so festive that the sun goddess became intrigued. She couldn't help but call out to ask what was happening outside. And Uzume replied, "We have found a new and much better sun goddess, na-na-na." And this startled Amaterasu. Better than she? She came to the entrance of the cave and peeked out. And when she did, Amaterasu caught sight of her own reflection in the mirror. And thinking her reflection was her replacement, she left the cave to protest. And the cave was quickly sealed off with a giant rock to prevent her from hiding away once again. She was angry at first for being fooled, but she soon found herself caught up in the celebration of her friends and family. And she began to dance, and her light shone out into the world once more. And just as quickly as they came, the demons and diseases that had been set upon the land receded to the underworld with Susanoo, and the earth was bathed in sunlight and joy once more. I like hearing stories from other faith traditions because we get a different sense of the same kind of things that other people are thinking of. This is our Sunday to share our light on leadership. And this Sunday, we have asked Rosalind Hunter if she will come forward. Roz is going to be our new vice president next year when the new board meets, and she is currently a member at large of the board. Thank you, Roz.
Even?
Oh,
Okay, sorry. Even with all that, I still didn't know where everyone else was. We were like 10 of us there, and I was like, I really wonder what's happening to everybody. So one of the first things that I wanted to do when joining the board was forming a new committee, a communication committee that would work on finding ways that we could all communicate with each other. One of the things, the projects that we were working on is updating the website. Can you all show that? Last year, there was, you remember, an ice storm, and a lot of people lost power, some people for a whole week, and I kept wondering, you know, what was happening to the other members of the church, and we just really didn't have any kind of thing to find out, you know, whether our older members were safe or whether anything was going on, and I was thinking about forming an emergency action committee for if something like this happens again. We could like open up the church to people whose houses don't have power and maybe come in and provide food or something for them to help take care of them. And I've also got a sign-up sheet there if you'd be interested in providing like food or bedding or to sit with people or to call people up to make sure they're okay if we have another emergency this year or like we did before. I just wanted to go ahead. The website should be launching hopefully later this week. And we also have our other social media ones that are currently active. For example, we are streaming this on YouTube. You can find the YouTube channel by searching First Jefferson Unitarian Universalist Church on YouTube. Our Facebook site is www.facebook.com/firstjefferson, and our website will be www.firstjefferson.org. So hopefully I will communicate with you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Roz. Give me the microphone because we're going to be needing it again. The next thing is not in your order of service because I didn't have it ready by the time I did the order of service. But you know that when we do our offertory, we do a share the plate every Sunday, and we do this for a quarter of the year at a time, and then we send a check to the people that we collect the money from. Well, during the last 3 months, we have told you that our Share the Plate money will be going to Eastside Community Services, and this Sunday invited their president, Denise Blakely, to come in person to accept our donation and to tell you a little about the important work that they do. So Denise, will you please come up here and join me on the chancel? And I just happen to have a check for you. And they sealed the envelope, but I've been told by one of the finance committee that there's more than $860 that we collected in here. And thank you all, and tell us a little about it.
On behalf of the entire team of Eastside Ministries, thank you. Thank you so much. Let's talk about where this money's going to go. One of the main things that we do are clothe and feed people, other lights. One of our intentions for Eastside Ministry is that when they come through those doors, the first thing they see is light and hope. That's the main mission. We're totally focused on the well-being of our clients, but not just the feeding and the clothing. When they come there, we don't want people to come in feeling that they are begging. I can tell you right now, when people come to us needing food and clothing, they linger because one of the first things they feel is accepted and loved. They also feel that where they are at that moment is just transitional. It's transitional. It's not going to be like that forever. Our people are especially trained to listen, to love, and to honor the light that shines in everyone, regardless of their situation. Your money goes to pay the salaries also of some of these wonderful people who have been trained to speak to you in your language that you're comfortable with, trained not to speak to you at all if you don't feel like talking, but just to be with you. People who are trained to intuitively listen and go beyond what you're used to telling other organizations that you need, and sitting there with you, playing with your children, listening to your goals, your dreams, and honoring the light that every person in this world is. I'd like to tell you, one of the first things that I call everyone is beloved. Beloved. I address everyone as beloved. And Eastside Ministries is a conduit, a means to an end, to having everyone feel beloved. Your dollars go to buy food. Your dollars go to upkeep the building. All of the staff and all of the people on the board, we don't get paid. This does not go to me or anyone else on the board. This goes directly to elevating people. Elevation of people and helping them, blessing them, and walking with them on their journey, however they choose to walk their journey. You're helping people with autonomy. You're helping people feel loved, no matter what gender, what race, what status. Status means nothing at Eastside Ministries, which is why I love it so much. It's a place, even though I work there, it's a place where the walls of this world come tumbling down, and everything is brought down to its essence. It's just me and you. And that's a lovely place to be. Your service this day is about joy, and I think you can tell that I walk in a lot of joy. I walk in joy because one of the things that gives me the most joy is to be able to interact with people and listen and learn from everyone. I was homeless myself for 3 years, right after college. It's a journey that I know very well. And because I was led into that journey. I'm thankful that when I talk to a homeless person eye to eye, I'm not just speaking as someone who is way up here and you're way down there. I'm looking directly. We're all on the same plane, trying to get to the same place. I'd like to thank you, beloved, for what you've done, what you're doing now, and what you're about to do in the future. Because there's someone out there that this money is going to bless, that this money is going to give hope to, that this money is going to let them know that wherever you are, life is a transitory thing. Where you are doesn't have to be where you're going. So bless you, bless you, bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. You know, we've all known about Eastside Ministry, Eastside Community Services, but I think this really helps to put a face on it, and I'm so grateful to you for coming this morning to tell us about it.
Thank you. Indeed. This Sunday, we're beginning a month of sharing the plate with the minister's discretionary fund. This fund is used to help those in need of emergency funds and can be tapped by contacting Reverend Annie. In the past, we've been able to help members and friends alike to pay bills, stock the refrigerator, bridge a time between jobs. It's what family does, and we are like family here. So, as the ushers pass among you, please be generous.
That was beautiful. Thank you. I looked up and I think I saw my dragonfly flying up above my pulpit, but I could be mistaken. My first response to the question is titled Joy Flies. The Reverend Scott Taylor wrote a poem about joy that begins like this. Joy doesn't simply arise, it flies, it flings. No, it is flung. It is passed, it is spread between you and me, between the one who just received a gift and the one who has been looking for that gift for a long time. The Christmas season, which we have apparently entered upon fully according to the lights and decorations scattered throughout my neighborhood and throughout the stores where I shop, is often called the season of joy. But originally, you know, it was the season of Saturnalia. And Saturnalia was reputed to be the jolliest of the Roman holidays, one which the poet Catullus described as the best of times. It was a harvest festival, a celebration of the winter solstice, after which the sun shone longer each day until June, returning the earth to abundance once again. Gifts and sacrifices were made to the gods and the goddesses, and celebrations, which included gambling and singing and feasting and socializing, were carried on far into the night, every day for at least a week, beginning December 17th and ending on December 25th. Work came to a halt during Saturnalia. Schools and courts were closed, with wreaths of greenery hung on every home. Even slaves could celebrate and often sat at the head of the table while their masters served them during Saturnalia. And as you already have probably heard, the early Christians changed Jesus' birth date to December 25th, since the people were celebrating anyway, and eventually, through clever propaganda, changed the reason for the season. Later innovations became tacked on, and traditions like Kris Kringle, who later became Santa Claus, were combined with the decorating of one's home with greenery and lights and the giving of gifts. Joy, whether it was spoken of or not, remained the backdrop to the season. And this is truly a season that has something in it for everyone. As children, we once believed that the world revolved around us, our needs, our joys, you remember. And we came to expect that annual shower of Christmas gifts. I remember a Christmas when I looked around the room wondering where we were going to put all the things we had given to the children, only to hear my daughter say, "Oh, I don't think we got as much this year. But there were some things I really wanted, so I guess it's okay." And I can still remember the feelings I had as a little girl when I saw that Santa had been paying attention to my most ardent dreams. And as we grew older and were able to be on the giving end, we learned to see how much joy there is in selecting and wrapping and sharing the pleasure of gifting. You know, the year my parents moved to Hawaii and decided that they didn't want to spend their Christmas budget on postage to mail gifts to us, they began to send checks instead. And the joy of Christmas was greatly diminished for me. Those were my Scrooge years, I'll have to admit. The whole thing seemed more like a duty than a pleasure. Pay to the order of. Merry Christmas. Bah, humbug. Well, this year I'm happy to report the season finds me more joyful. I am a mentor in the Eldera program, I've told you about this before, which matches elders who want to teach and support children with children who want to explore and learn. And my mentee, who is 9, almost 10 years old, and he loves to tell stories. He's a South Korean boy here for a year while his father goes to school, and he's learning to tell stories in English. We write stories for each other weekly, and I talk about how they are created and why metaphors are important and points of view and the joy of imagination. And he is living in Denver, where it is very cold. He is also a Harry Potter fan at my urging. So this season, I knit him a maroon and gold striped scarf with a crest of Gryffindor house sewn at one end. As the scarf grew and grew, my joy in imagining his pleasure was simply palpable. I could almost taste it. And I sent the package off last week. I wanted to be sure to get there before the big mail rush, while the family was vacationing in Florida during a week of school off. And tomorrow when we meet on Zoom, I will discover just how much it pleases him. But I already have a hint. His father wrote and told me that he sleeps with his scarf. Oh, I know. I found myself chuckling aloud as I imagined the sequence of him opening the package and recognizing the wizardry badge, throwing it around his neck, and refusing to take it off when he puts on his pajamas. One long maroon and gold scarf, 2 experiences of joy. Joy doesn't simply arise. It flies. It flings. No, it is flung. Reverend Taylor ended his poem about joy like this. It is a beautiful and elegant contagion over which we have more control than we think. If only we share it, if only we notice that joy is not ours to keep, but ours to pass on. So let's light up the world, friends. Joy blesses us with its exuberance, so we can make that blessing grow. Let us make a vow to remember that throughout the year and not wait until another season of darkness compels us to peer into the night and seek the return of the god or goddess of the sun. It would make us all a creator and a sharer of joy. However, joy isn't possible all the time. There has to be darkness before the light returns, and I will have more to say about that in a moment. But first, let us hear what the choir finds joyful in this season. And as the choir gathers here, we have a guest soprano with us today, Mickey Ron, who is a friend of Michael Nguyen, our choir director, and she is joining us because Della is camping this weekend, and we don't have her strong voice. Thank you. Julia, this is you. I think this is your...
Here's another point of view. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I was just...
Here's another point of view from the Reverend Joe Cherry. Joy is hard. Joy requires us to feel safe enough, to be safe enough, to open to vulnerability. To feel joy, you must be brave. Joy walks into a room after the space has been cleared. Cleared of shame, cleared of doubt, cleared of self-recrimination. Joy is hard. Joy is hard. And joy is worth the hard work of preparation, preparing ourselves and setting down all of the defenses, all the shoulds and could-haves, all the should not haves and the might haves. Joy is worth the work. You are worth the work. You can start small, the simple pleasure of your favorite treat, tea, the grand freedom of a full belly laugh. Invite joy to be your companion.
Thank you. Joy is hard. We've all been there. Maybe joy is even impossible. Darkness comes in many shapes, some of them overwhelming. Death devours joy, anger chases it away. The story of Scrooge remains perennially popular for that very reason. We can, each of us, find a memory in our hearts that allows us to sympathize with him, shout out the dreaded words, bah and humbug. Why the need to shout, we might wonder, when we've done it? Reverend Cherry gave us a hint when he said, to feel joy, you must be brave. And when we can't find bravery, we often go for bravado, a very different kind of posture. Shouting is often required to carry it off, to fend off the vulnerabilities that life consistently visits upon us. There has been little enough joy in the seasons of COVID. There has been much to fear. There has been roomfuls of loneliness. There has been doubt, even anger. There it is again, that damned unknown. Sometimes I've felt like a child, a small child that wants someone to tell her what to do. I mean, that someone used to be me, the strong mother, the wise elder, the cheerleader, the giver of advice and comfort. If it isn't in my job description, it's what I tell myself to make the job possible. But joy has been hard to come by at times these past 2 years. And that's probably why I've made so much of the opening of First Jefferson to in-person services in September. I've spoken to you more than once about the energy I felt. That energy was the first hint that joy is still possible. It lives among us. And while we are together, it protects us from the outer world. But eventually we have to go back into the world where darkness still loiters around the edges. Sad memories live in the darkness. Do you ever wake in the middle of the night from a dream or a memory and find it difficult to go back to sleep? And have you noticed how often it is the bad memories, the sad memories, that rule those early morning hours and deprive us of our sleep? 3 o'clock. That's my hour where shoulda, woulda, and coulda dwell. I found it doesn't help to stay in bed, and I fling aside the covers and I go elsewhere to distract myself. It helps to have a plan, a game to play on your computer perhaps, or a book to read that doesn't scold or scare. It helps to turn on a light, for we already know that joy is difficult to find in darkness. I should keep a copy of that poem and place it somewhere I can look at it at 3 o'clock to honor the fact that joy is hard. To remind myself that joy is worth the work, to encourage myself to start small, to remind myself that in the morning I can call a friend and share my fears, my memories, my doubts. Even in that, the clearing of shame and doubt, sharing can begin again and begin the process of joy. It is a time to remember you are not alone in the darkness. In other sequestered rooms, one of us is also seeking to relearn joy, to remember that morning will come again with the sun. And while we're talking about joy and the sorrow that is its companion, let us share a communion of names and milestones as we do every Sunday. I found a letter on my computer this week. Many of you know the subject, even if only by name. And the letter read, "Dear justice-seeking friends, it is with sadness that we write to you to let you know that Texas Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry's founding executive director, the Reverend Chuck Freeman, is now in hospice care after a long and difficult health struggle. Our hearts are with him, and his family is by his side." Let us remember this great Unitarian Universalist. Chuck was a minister at the small church in Austin. He followed my ministry there back in the late 90s, I believe, and such a dear man and such a great worker for justice. We also have our book that we keep out in the lobby for people to write and share their own stories. This is a happy sharing. Joe Burnham has raised more than $230 for Don't Forget to Feed Me. This is the group that we share commitment with to help feed pets during this COVID shutdown. She simply asked members to give. She said, "I beg well." So thank you to all who contributed, and thank you, Joe, for your dedication to this program that we have participated in by having a donation box out in the lobby for pet food. I have a sad story to share from Dale Husband, whose father is dying of prostate cancer. I'm sorry, Dale. I hope that you can be with him at this difficult time whenever you can. And then a little more joyful story. Marilyn Cordham's daughter-in-law and her daughter have adopted an embryo. They are due at the end of April, and the family is delighted. What joyful news. So a little sadness, a little joy. I would like to do a spoken meditation today. So as we consider the stories that live in our community and that we share with one another, close your eyes, relax, however you meditate. And I will read you The Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown. She wrote, "Twinkle lights are the perfect metaphor for joy is not constant. It comes to us in moments, often ordinary moments. Sometimes we miss out on the bursts of joy because we're too busy chasing down extraordinary moments. Other times we're so afraid of the dark that we don't dare let ourselves enjoy the light. A joyful life is not a floodlight of joy. That would eventually become unbearable. I believe a joyful life is made up of joyful moments, gracefully strung together by trust and gratitude, by inspiration and by faith." Here's the thing. If you Google joy, you will find a lot of poetry. Poets, bless them, have taken it upon themselves to share the gift of joy. It's why I put Mary Oliver's poem Mindful on the front page of the order of service. Joyeux Noël, a gift to you. You know, when I was in seminary, my study group had this tradition. The classes were hard. The books were many. Our lives were stripped of frivolous pleasures. Oh, we goofed off when we could. We went square dancing once a week, but the rest was discipline. So when one of us fell into a bout of complaining or despairing, the rest of us would take to saying in chorus, "Life is tough, and then you die." Yes, and then we would do what you just did. We would laugh, and we would go on with what had to be done. And most of us, like me, were determined to get through the 4-year course in 3 years because we weren't kids. This was not our first going to school, our first job or anything. This was a way station, a place to become who we wanted to be and then get on with our adult lives, our new and improved adult lives. And it wasn't easy. Taking those extra courses every semester left little time for pleasure, but we needed to remind ourselves that we could still laugh. It was the life we had chosen, and we would earn the joy to come. And you know, I find myself still saying that when something happens to discourage me. Life is tough, and then you die. And then I laugh. Because it's enough. Because I know that in between those two sentences, life is tough, and then you die, there are twinkle lights of joy, off and then on, off and then on, and then on and on. I think I became an adult when I realized I wasn't looking for ecstasy. Joy is enough. Happiness is not a constant either. Who could tolerate it? Contentment is my default desire. It is big enough. It is strong enough to hold discontent and disappointment and still bring joy. Here's advice from another poet, Adrienne Marie Brown. She wrote, "Pleasure reminds us to enjoy being alive. Pleasure, embodied, connected pleasure, is one of the ways we know when we are free, that we are always free, that we always have the power to co-create the world. Pleasure helps us move through the times that are unfair, through grief and loneliness, through the terror of genocide or days when the demands are just overwhelming. Pleasure heals the places where our hearts and our spirit get wounded. Pleasure reminds us that even in the dark, we are alive. Pleasure is a medicine for the suffering that is absolutely promised in life. Pleasure is the point. Feeling good is not frivolous. It is freedom." I love this line. We have always had the power to co-create the world. Maybe I should paste that on my bathroom mirror along with the Mary Oliver poem and the one about joy being hard. Maybe I should have it printed on a T-shirt and hand them out to share the thought. I started to say hand them out to everyone who looks sad, and then I realized what a mistake that would be, because sadness is inevitable as long as we don't choose to dwell there. Grief is healing. It's necessary even. I don't mean to shame you if you're feeling sad at this moment, or terrified or lonely, or any of those joyless feelings. Sometimes we even have to unplug the twinkle lights. But it is always there. We always have the power to co-create the world. When I lived in the Appalachian Mountains of Virginia, I was able to marvel at the tunnels that the engineers had cut through the mountains so that trains could get from one town to another. You couldn't go over those pointy mountains in a train. You know, last spring I went back to Virginia for a visit, and I went into one of those tunnels that is no longer used by the railroad. It was long, and it was very dark. And it curved inside the mountain so that you couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel until you were way past the middle of it. And I began to shuffle my feet, fearful of falling. And some people took out their phones and turned on their flashlights, but they were soon shamed into turning them off by the catcalls of braver souls who understood what awaited us. Because when we rounded that curve and when we saw that small round hole of light that was the exit from the tunnel, there was so much joy that we cheered and we laughed and we squeezed one another's hands, hands we hadn't even realized we had grabbed in the darkness. We found the light at the end of the tunnel, and our joy was sublime. And then you know what we did? We turned around and entered the tunnel a second time so that we could discover joy at the other end before making our way back to our cars. No, joy isn't constant, and we can even take pleasure in that, because joy, when it comes, is enough. So share it and let it go. Let there be darkness, and then let there be light, which just happens to be the title of our closing hymn, number 142. I have to share one more verse, this one by Rumi, in order to extinguish our chalice, the light of our joy. He wrote, "If you knew yourself for even one moment, if you could just glimpse your most beautiful face, maybe you wouldn't slumber so deeply in your house of clay. Why not move into your house of joy and shine into every crevice? For you are the secret treasure bearer and always have been. Didn't you know?" And we extinguish our chalice because we have a joy in coming together, and we will be back together again next week. And I'm sorry I did not light the candles of joy and sorrow. I was supposed to, because I let Julia go off the chancel. But imagine those beautiful lights for the beautiful stories that dwell in our community. And my final words are from Gautama Buddha. Thousands of candles can be lighted from a single candle. Happiness never decreases by being shared. So may it be in all our lives. And now, please join me, not for coffee and conversation, but in Coleman Hall for Potluck Sunday. And our visitors are welcome to join us as well.